I was standing at my daughter's front door when I heard her say my name. Not the way a daughter says her father's name when she's happy to see him. The other way. The way people say it when they think you can't hear them. I had driven 45 minutes in the dark to get there. Thanksgiving. I was exactly 7 minutes late because I stopped for gas and the pump was slow, and I remember thinking that 7 minutes wasn't worth calling ahead about. I was wrong about that. I didn't ring the bell right away. Something made me stop. Maybe it was the way the light looked through the window. Warm and golden, the kind of warmth that makes you feel outside of things even before you know you are. I stood on that welcome mat, the one I bought them as a housewarming gift 3 years ago, dark green with a little pineapple on it, and I listened. My daughter's voice carried through the door. She was laughing. Then my son-in-law's voice, louder, doing what he always does at parties, performing. "To family," he said, and I could hear glasses being raised. "To the people who actually show up." A pause. "And honestly, it's a nicer evening without the rain cloud." Laughter. My daughter's laugh was in there somewhere. I recognized it. I stood very still on that green mat with the pineapple. I am 63 years old. I worked 31 years as a claims investigator for an insurance company, and before that I spent 4 years in the Army. And what both of those things teach you, more than anything else, is how to be still. How to wait. How to not let your face show what your stomach is doing. I stepped back from the door. I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment with my hands on the wheel, and then I drove to the diner 2 miles down the road, and I ordered coffee and a piece of apple pie, and I sat there until I was ready. That was 6 months ago. Let me tell you what happened after. My son-in-law's name is Brent. He is 41 years old, and he has the handshake of a man who read a book about handshakes once and took notes. The first time I met him, he told me within 4 minutes that he'd played lacrosse at a Division I school. I didn't ask. He offered it, the way some men offer credentials instead of conversation. My daughter, Laurel, she's 35. She has her mother's eyes and her grandmother's stubbornness. She met Brent at a work conference in Phoenix. He was in real estate development. She was in corporate HR. They dated for 2 years, got engaged, married. I walked her down the aisle. I gave a speech at the rehearsal dinner that made 3 people cry, including myself. I tried with Brent. I want to be clear about that. I took him fishing twice. I watched football games I didn't particularly care about because he cared about them. When he and Laurel bought their house, I spent 2 weekends helping them strip wallpaper from the guest bedroom, which is one of the most thankless tasks a human being can undertake. I tried. The problem, which I understood only slowly, is that Brent didn't want a father-in-law. He wanted an audience. And when I wasn't applauding, he found me inconvenient. It started small, little things. He'd talk over me at dinner. He'd correct me on things he didn't actually know more about, confident in a way that had nothing to do with knowledge. Once, when I mentioned a trip my late wife and I took to Portugal, he said, "Oh, I've heard Lisbon's gotten really touristy," which was not a response to anything I'd said, just a way of putting a period on a sentence he hadn't been part of. My daughter watched all of this and said nothing, which told me something too. 3 years into their marriage, Brent lost his job. He didn't tell me directly. Laurel called on a Sunday afternoon and said that Brent's company had restructured and that he'd been let go along with a lot of other people, which may have been true, but which covered over something she knew, and I had started to suspect, that Brent had been increasingly difficult to work with, that deals had fallen through on his watch, and that the restructuring had been, in his case, specifically engineered. "He's doing okay," my daughter said. "Good," I said. "He's already got some things in the works." "That's good, Laurel. He just needs a little time." I have learned over 6 decades that a little time is almost always longer than whoever is saying it believes. Brent's things in the works turned out to be a real estate venture with a college friend, a man named Corey, whom I never met but about whom I heard a great deal. Corey had done very well in commercial properties in the Carolinas. Corey had contacts. Corey had a deal lined up in a growing market that couldn't miss. My daughter used the words "can't miss" with the kind of earnestness that told me Brent had used them so many times they'd started to sound like facts. That was about 8 months before Thanksgiving. 4 months before Thanksgiving, my daughter called again. "Daddy," she said. She hadn't called me daddy since she was in her 20s. When she uses it now, it means she needs something, And whatever she needs, she knows I might say no. What is it, sweetheart? We're in a little bit of a situation. The situation was this. The venture with Corey had stalled. Not failed, she was careful with that word, but stalled. There was a zoning issue. There were delays. In the meantime, Brent and Laurel had been living on savings, and the savings had run lower than she'd said, and there was a payment coming due on a private loan Brent had taken from someone I'd never heard of, and the interest rate on that loan was not a number I would have agreed to under any circumstances. How much? I asked. She told me. I was quiet for a moment. Laurel, that's not a loan. That's a hostage situation, Daddy. Who is this person? She didn't know. That was the part that sat in my chest like a stone. She didn't know who had lent her husband $40,000 at an interest rate that belonged in the 1970s. Because Brent had handled it, and Brent had said it was fine, and she had believed him. They needed $63,000, $40,000 to pay off the loan, the rest to cover the next 3 months, while the venture got back on track. I asked her what the venture was worth if it went through. She said Brent thought they were looking at significant returns. I asked what significant meant. She said she wasn't sure exactly. I said I'd think about it. I thought about it for 2 weeks. I am not a wealthy man, but I am a careful one. I have a pension from my years at the company, a modest investment account that I've tended like a garden for 20 years, and a house I own outright, having paid off the mortgage 8 years ahead of schedule. My late wife, Joanna. We were married 34 years before she passed. She and I lived within our means our entire lives. We took vacations we could afford. We drove cars until they stopped working. We believed that what you own is what you have, and debt is what other people have until one day it's yours. I could have given Laurel the money. The $63,000 would not have ruined me, not immediately. But it would have cost me, and more to the point, I had been watching Brent for 3 years. I knew the shape of him, and I knew that money given to Brent to solve a problem had about the same odds as money thrown at a roulette wheel. What I didn't know, what I should have asked sooner, was what else he had done that I didn't know about. I decided to find out. I have a friend, a man I worked with for 12 years, who now does private investigation and what he generously calls financial transparency consulting. His name is Al. He is patient, discreet, and he charges a fair rate. I called Al on a Wednesday morning, and I told him what I knew about Brent, the job situation, the loan, the venture with the college friend who had contacts and deals that couldn't miss, the $63,000 my daughter had called to ask me for. Al listened without interrupting. How much do you want to know? He asked when I was done. Everything, I said. It took him 11 days. What Al found was this. The venture with Corey was real. Partially. There was a property deal in a market that had genuinely been showing growth. But Brent's role in that deal was smaller than what he'd described to my daughter. He wasn't a partner. He was a referral, due to receive a finder's fee if things closed, not a percentage of returns. The returns he'd described to Laurel, the numbers that had made her say significant with such unquestioning faith, were not his numbers. They were the total project numbers, and he had presented them to her as if they were his share. The private loan was from a man who appeared, after some digging, to have a history of informal lending to people in difficult situations. Not a criminal, exactly. Not the kind of person you'd call at night worried, but not the kind of person I'd want attached to my daughter's household either. And then there was the other thing. The other thing was a credit card. One Laurel didn't know about, because it wasn't in Laurel's name. It was in both their names, technically, because they were married. But Brent had applied for it separately during a period when Laurel was traveling for work. And he had not mentioned it to her. The balance on that card was $22,000. The charges were restaurants, a hotel in Charleston, something from a jeweler in Midtown that cost $400, and a deposit to a golf club that had a $1,200 annual membership fee. I looked at those charges for a long time. I thought about my daughter working her job, managing her responsibilities, believing in her husband's things in the works. I thought about the way her voice had gone soft and apologetic when she asked me for the money. I thought about her using the word daddy. Then I thought about the welcome mat, the one I bought them, the pineapple. I called Al back. What should I do with this? I asked. That's not my department, he said. But if you're asking what I think, I'd want my daughter to know. The question was how. I had learned something, in 31 years of claims work, about how people receive information they don't want. There is an order to it that matters. If you come in hard, with accusations, the person you're trying to help spends all their energy defending the person you're accusing, even when they know you're right. Especially when they know you're right. It's a kind of loyalty that protects itself by attacking the messenger. So I didn't call Laurel. Not yet. I asked her, about 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, whether she'd like to have lunch. Just us. She said yes, and I could hear some relief in it, the way you can hear it when someone expected to be avoided and wasn't. We went to a place we used to go when she was in college and would come home for weekends. A Greek place with good lemon soup and photographs of islands on the wall that had nothing to do with the restaurant but felt right anyway. We talked about ordinary things for a while. Her job, her friend who'd just had a baby, a show she'd been watching. I asked about the garden she'd started in the backyard, because she'd sent me pictures of the tomatoes in September, and they'd looked impressive. Then she brought it up herself. I know you haven't given us an answer yet, she said. About the money. I know. Brent is he's stressed. He's trying. I looked at her. She looked like her mother when she was worried. The same line between her eyebrows. Laurel, I said, I want to ask you something, and I want you to know that I'm asking because I love you, not because I'm against Brent. She nodded slowly. Do you know the full picture of your finances right now? A pause. I think so. All of it? Both of you together? She looked at the photographs of the islands. He handles most of it. I trust him. I know you do. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking whether you personally know what's in your accounts. Both names. All accounts. She was quiet for a long moment. What do you know? She said finally. I put Al's report on the table, not to hurt her. To give her something solid to hold while the floor moved. She read it for a long time without saying anything. I watched a couple at the next table share a piece of baklava. The restaurant was quiet for a Thursday afternoon. A song I didn't recognize was playing from somewhere in the back. When Laurel set the papers down, her face was very still. The stillness of someone who is working very hard not to show what they're feeling until they know what they're feeling. The card, she said. Yes, no. She picked the papers back up and looked at the charges again. The Charleston Hotel, the jeweler, the golf club. The golf club, she said quietly. He told me that membership lapsed. I didn't say anything. She set the papers down again. This time she didn't pick them up. What do I do? She asked. That's your decision, I said. But you should make it knowing what's true. What happened next, I was not present for. Laurel told me about it afterward, in pieces, over several weeks. She went home that evening and she sat down with Brent, and she asked him to show her all of their accounts. Together. Right then, at the kitchen table, on his laptop, all of it. He said he would, but tonight wasn't good, he was tired. Could they do it this weekend? She said no. Tonight he pushed back a few more times. Then he got his laptop. She walked him through it. Every account, every card. And when the one she hadn't known about appeared on the screen, the one with the $22,000 balance, she waited to see what he would do. He said it was for work purposes. Something about client entertainment being more practical on a separate card for tax reasons. She asked about the hotel in Charleston. He said it was a conference. She asked which conference. He said he'd have to look it up. She put Al's report on the kitchen table. The conversation that followed, she told me, lasted about 2 hours and was one of the hardest things she'd ever done. I believe her. I've had 2 or 3 conversations in my life that I would put in that category. They are the ones where you are asking someone you love to stop lying, knowing that what you'll have to do with the truth when you get it will be harder than the asking. Brent, in the end, admitted most of it. Not all of it. I don't think he will ever admit all of it, because I'm not sure he has full access to what he's done, but enough. Enough for Laurel to understand the shape of things. She called me on a Saturday morning. I'm not asking for the money anymore, she said. We're figuring out our own situation. Okay, I think we need to. We're probably going to see someone, a counselor, or a financial person, or both. That sounds wise. I'm angry at you, she said. I know, for going behind his back, for hiring someone. I understand that. A silence. But I'm glad I know, she said. I just need you to know that I'm both things at once. People usually are, I said. Most of the time, the important ones are. She laughed a little, not a big laugh, a small one that sounded tired. Can we have lunch again next week? She said. The Greek place? The Greek place. It's been 6 months. Brent and Laurel are still together. I won't pretend I don't have thoughts about that, because I do, but they are her thoughts to have, not mine. She is a grown woman who knows her own situation better than I know it, and she has to live her life, not the one I would have written for her. What I can tell you is this. She has access to all the accounts now. Her name is on everything, and she checks it. The private loan has been paid off. They pulled from savings I didn't know they had, which told me something, and the credit card is on a payment plan. The venture with Corey's contact is still technically alive, though my daughter now describes it as probably not going anywhere, which is the most honest thing I've heard her say about it. Brent shook my hand at Christmas. He looked me in the eye when he did it, which was new. I don't know what it meant. Maybe nothing, maybe something. I'm 63 years old, and I've learned not to assign too much meaning to a handshake, even a firm one from a man who once read a book about them. I didn't go inside right away. I stood on their front step for a moment. They have a new welcome mat now, a plain gray one, no pineapple. And I looked at the door and I thought about the last Thanksgiving, the cold air, the sound of my name through the wood, the toast. Then I rang the bell. My daughter answered. She was smiling, and it was her real smile, the one she got from her mother, and she stepped aside and said, "Come in, Dad," and I did.